Hello everyone. Welcome to the Environmental Studies Week 3. We will be moving into the Unit 2 where we are going to discuss about natural resources with the special reference to forest and water. This video will help you to understand the natural resources and their types, forest as a resource and water as resource. Natural resources. It can be simply defined as any material given to us by nature which can be transformed in a way that becomes more valuable and useful. So these are already existing in nature, but we are extracting it, we are using it to make it more valuable and more useful for our daily life. What are natural resources? In simple words, they are the supplies from nature and everything around the earth that we use for our survival. The best examples can be coal, oil, iron, timber, river, animals, sunlight. Yes, each one of them can be categorized as the natural resources. But how we use it, how we extract it, how we make use of them for our daily life makes them more meaningful and more useful. Now, the question comes, how are these natural resources classified? First, it is classified as renewable resource. The second category is non-renewable resource. And third one is inexhaustible resources. So we will look into each one of the category and understand what they mean and what are the examples for each one of them. So natural resources, you have renewable and non-renewable resources. Then forest as a resource, you have then water as resources, mineral resources, and food resources. And each one of them is important for the existing and survival point of human beings. Natural resources. The prosperity of a nation is dependent on the natural resources available in a nature, in that particular nation. So, if the nation is rich with respect to forest, minerals, oil deposits, naturally those countries can be a rich country provided you make use of them. If you just allow them to lie around there without using it, without extracting it, and without putting it to use, then it is of no use. So, naturally, you need to identify the presence of such resources, try to extract it, try to use it or commercialize it. Then only it becomes a part and parcel of the prosperity for the nation. Now, the renewable resources. The renewable energy is the energy which is generated from natural sources such as sun, wind, rain, tides, and it can be generated again and again as and when required. So, these are the ones which are present in the nature, but they never get exhausted. For example, sunlight. Except for night time, probably you can have the sunlight literally 24/7 for 365 days of a year. Wind, all the time it is possible. Rain, fluctuation can be there, but rain will come. Tides, as long as seas are present or oceans are present, the tides will be happening, and those energy can be made use of. And these are available in plenty and by far the most cleanest sources of energy available on the planet. Now, why do we say that it is cleanest source? If you think of coal, for example, or petroleum oil, for example, when they burn, it gives out a lot of toxic materials or a lot of unwanted chemicals into nature. But think of solar energy, there is no possibility of any wastage or any toxic material content being released into the environment. That is why it is called as the most cleanest source of energy which is available. The solar energy, wind energy, geothermal energy, biomass energy from plants, tidal energy are the typical examples for the renewable resources from the nature. The second category is the non-renewable resources. As the name indicates, these are not possible to renew. What are they? A non-renewable resource is a natural resource which cannot be remade or regrown at a scale comparable to its consumption. Think, for example, coal. At present, we have probably enough supply of coal, and if we keep on using it at an alarming, uncontrolled pattern, then one day will come where all the coal gets exhausted and we will no more be left with any coals. So then we will have to go for alternative energy. So naturally, these cannot be man made. Then the non-renewable resources are not environment friendly and they can have serious effects on the health. Think of any one of them: oil, oil, coal, gas, or nuclear. Anyone will give you energy, true. But on the other hand, if you use nuclear energy, yes, radiation toxicity is there. If you use oil, it will lead to the release of lot of chemicals into the environment. We end up breathing and our health can be seriously affected. And so is the case with coal. All of them can and will have a lot of health effects, be it on human beings or animals or the environment. Anything can be affected. And they are called non-renewable because they cannot be regenerated within a short span of life. If you understand the mechanism of formation of coal or petroleum oil, for example, the organic materials will be buried under the earth for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. With pressure, with the time, with temperature, they gradually get converted into either coal or a petroleum oil. So it would require thousands and thousands of years to be formed. It is not possible to generate them overnight. And non-renewable resources exist in the form of fossil fuels, natural gases, oil, and coal. So these are some of the examples for non-renewable resources. Now coming on to the forest as resource. I think this picture beautifully depicts the concept of forest, all angles, the good and bad also. Okay, now what is the use of forest? Obviously, that question arises when we say forest as a resource. First and foremost, they stop the rain bearing winds and cause the rainfall. As we have studied in our lower classes, high schools and primary schools, that the mountains and forest is responsible to uh, act as a barrier for the clouds, which is responsible for the causing of the rainfall. So naturally, the forest is an essential part of the environment with respect to rainfall. Second, they increase the moisture content in the atmosphere and thereby provide additional precipitation in the locality. So, when you have the moisture content which is increased in the environment, they help in the additional precipitation or the rainfall in that particular area. They minimize the extreme variation in climatic condition and make the climate more equable. In the sense, because of the presence of the trees, they take care of pollution, they take care of the releasing of good and breathable air. So naturally, they help in the balancing of the climate. They control floods during the heavy rain and by absorbing the excess rainwater. So that's how all, I mean, this is another mechanism by which or how they are useful for us. They prevent soil erosion by checking the force of the flowing water. Because of the foothold of the roots which is given out by the trees, they hold the soil in a firm manner, thereby, they prevent the soil erosion. And to the previous point, I would like to give an example: control flood. I don't know if you remember the very famous tsunami incident which happened several years ago in India, which affected the entire world, almost entire world, I would say. In some parts of the uh, Tamil Nadu and other areas, there were a kind of ecosystem called as mangrove ecosystem. I don't know whether you heard or not. If you're not, please go through that. These are the trees which are present almost on the seaside, in the estuarine area, that is where the sea meets the river. So in those areas, these mangrove forests were present. So if you understand the mechanism of tsunami, the waves are of the order of 10, 15, 20 feet high, and it hits the shore with immense pressure. But because of the presence of this mangroves, the impact of the waves was significantly reduced, thereby reducing the ill effect of a tsunami to a great extent. So naturally, the trees are of importance. The thick roots of the trees absorb large quantities of water. Thus, the forest helps in the flow of rivers and streams. This is another contribution of the forest to the nature. That is, it helps in the flow of rivers and streams. When we say the good things, I think the bad things also come. If just like two faces of a coin, there is a good face, there is a bad face. The reasons for large scale depletion of forest. We are observing a huge amount of depletion of the forest in a recent year, and that too is more alarmingly. What could be the reasons? One of the things is expansion of agriculture. More forests have been cleared off for agriculture. As I discussed in one of the early classes or lectures, that because of the population explosion, we need to have more food, more land. So naturally, what people do is they cut the forest. That's the easiest way, right? So this is affecting our environment. And large area of forest lands have been cleared off for urbanization and human settlement. So natural, this is natural. Because of increasing population, you need more land. So cut the trees, make layouts, and occupy those areas. And one of the things what you observe is the uh, encroachment of the forest has led to the forest wild animals getting into the cities and other things. That is because they are lacking their habitat. Then commercial exploitation of the forest fires. Commercial exploitation is in the sense you cut the trees for wood logs for various purposes. Forest fires. I think every year we are seeing vast amount of forests are being destroyed because of the forest fires. One we recently saw in Australia and California, where thousands and thousands of hectares of forest was destroyed because of the forest fire, and that had led to the death of crores of wild animals. Then mining activities in the forest areas. This is another cause for the depletion of the forest. That's the safest place because no human interaction will be there, so nobody will be looking after, and it's easy for people to explore such areas. Then forest diseases are also partly responsible for the depletion of the forest. That is the infections which are diseases to the trees. Now we said the causes for the forest depletion. Now what is the outcome of depletion? The depletion of forest has contributed to the rise in temperature, lesser precipitation, or in the sense lesser rainfall, increased rate of soil erosion because the trees are no more there, roots are no more there, so they are not able to hold on to the soil. Increase in the frequency of volume of floods. So that is happening. Loss of soil productivity because if the forest is there, the leaves will dry off and fall and they rot, contributing to the fertility of the soil. But when you do not have the leaves falling on a consistent basis, the soil will lose its productivity. Loss of biodiversity. When you cut out the forest, naturally what will happen is the animals will also eventually either migrate or die or being killed. As a result, the biodiversity will be significantly affected. Then this has led to the extinction of several species of plants and animals. So when you cut the trees, naturally the animals which are dependent on such trees will no more be available, or it is no more available for the animals or plants, sorry, insects to survive on. One of the best example I can give here in Nitte is if you observe near the temple area, and especially during early rainy season or late rainy season, 2 to 3 trees will be occupied by certain birds, and only those trees are occupied by the birds, no other trees, even though we have much more number of trees, but only 2 to 3 trees will be occupied by those beautiful birds. Now just imagine if you cut those trees, we will lose those uh, migration of the birds. And last one, imbalance in the ecosystem. So as a result of all this, it would significantly cause an imbalance in the ecosystem. Now, what do we do that for such things? One is conservation. Conserve the forest. Here I would like to quote a simple example what we practice in South Canada or Dakshina Kannada. Most of you might be knowing a religious practice which is called as Nagabana. Nagabana is a micro environment where a, a stone sculpture of the cobra is kept and it is worshipped. But the belief in the locals is that you should not cut, you should not take even the dried and fallen wood branch from that area. That is the belief of the locals. It might look superstition, but if you think from ecological perspective point of view, now think of the significance of that. At least in the name of religion, you are conserving a small, about 100 square feet, 100 square meter area as a religious practice, and that contributes to the nature. The second resource is the water. About 70% of the surface of the earth is covered by water. In spite of that, you have only about 2.7% of fresh water which is drinkable. And most of the fresh water are locked in ice caps. Just imagine, out of 2.7%, 2.05% is trapped in the ice and glaciers. Only about 0.7% is available for human usage. Just look at the magnitude what we are left with. Just about 0.7%. Now, what happens is, because of urbanization, development, and other so-called prosperities, we are over-utilizing and we are polluting the surface and groundwater. To quote a simple example, the bore wells, what we take in certain places, or at least 10-15 years ago, you would get the good amount of water by drilling about 100-200 feet into the ground. But nowadays, what has happened is, in certain places, including South Canada, even if you go to the 500 feet, 700 feet, you hardly get any water. You do not get any water. That is an alarming situation, because the groundwater is also affected and it is no more available. So it is a serious concern one need to think of. Then the floods. Because of the imbalance with respect to forest, we are getting floods. Then droughts. This is another, I mean, these two are extremes actually. Droughts, because again, because of the cutting of the trees, we are losing or not getting enough rain, and because the trees are not there which can hold water, which can pull the water towards the ground, we are not able to store water in the ground, so which would lead to droughts again. Coming on to the water management, how can we manage? One is building several small reservoirs instead of few mega projects. Instead of like big dams and other things, make small reservoirs, a small pond in your local area. This can help in managing the water much more efficiently. Afforestation permits recharging of groundwater. Plant more trees. That helps to draw more water into the ground. Treatment and recycling of municipal water for agricultural use. In the sense, uh, in especially in the city areas, you will be ending up using a lot of water, but these water, if you are able to recycle it, then they can be used at least for agricultural purpose or gardening and those kind of activities, wherein you can reduce the intake of fresh water. More important one, preventing leakages from dams and canals. So this is another way by which water is being lost. If you can manage a better and efficient dams and canals where you prevent the leakage of water, it would be a best practice to minimize water loss. Effective rainwater harvesting in urban environment. At least this concept is getting a lot of importance and weightage these days, wherein city corporation is making it mandatory to have a rainwater harvesting system for every possible buildings. What is the use of it? You can store water for long period of time. Rainwater is it's a very pure form of water. After one or two rains, you can collect it, store it for long period of time. That's one thing. Second thing is, if you can have uh, a proper rainwater harvesting system, you can feed the, it's called as feeder wells. You can use it to reactivate and rejuvenate the dried up wells as well as bore wells. And water conservation measures in agriculture such as drip irrigation. Generally what happens is we end up pouring excessive amount of water, but when you pour in, like for example, a tree requires about coconut tree requires about 10 liters of water. You switch on the pump and you pour in 100 liters of water. What will happen? 90 liters will get evaporated. Only 10 liters will be of use to the plant. But now if you can go around with the drip irrigation, that loss can be minimized significantly. Then pricing of water at its real value. This is a very, very, very important point. Please bear a little extra attention onto this one. Pricing of the water at its real value makes people use it more responsibly and efficiently and reduce the water wasting. Charge the charge for the usage of water, then only we will understand the significance of it. Whenever anything comes free to us, we will lose its importance. So, price it rightly so that we can minimize the water wastage. This chart gives us an idea as to how much water is consumed by a person per day. In 2007, it was 110 liters. In 2010, it was 120. In 2015, it is 135. In 2020, 150 liters. And in 2025, it is 150 liters. So that's a drastic increase per house consumption. So this chart gives us the water requirements per person. It is categorized under different: drinking, cooking, flushing, bathing, washing clothes, washing utensils, gardening, under different categories. A person requires about 3 liters per day for drinking and about 4 liters for cooking, flushing about 40 liters, that is toilet and bathrooms, bathing about 20 liters, washing clothes, if you use washing machines, about 25 liters, washing utensils about 20 liters, and gardening around 23 liters. So on an average, you would require about 135 liters of water per day per person. And per month, you will be using about 4050 liters, and per year you will be using about 48,600 liters of water per person. I'm talking about. Look at the magnitude. Can we reduce it in an efficient manner? That's a question. Now, somewhere in the earlier slide, we said that only 0.7% of the water is available for human usage, out of which you have dirty water, you have water which is beyond usage, can't even think of drinking, forget about other activities. So there are water quality parameters which we need to look at. The water quality is determined by assessing three classes of attributes. One is physical characteristic, chemical characteristic, and biological characteristics. So there are standards of water quality which is set for each of these three classes of attributes. physically how the water should be, chemically what are the characteristics, and biologically what are the characteristics. The physical parameters of water quality assessment is the color, odor, turbidity, temperature, and conductivity. So, first and foremost is the color. If the color of the water is turbid, brownish, dark color, you obviously will not be using it. Odor, if it smells badly, again, that's not a good water. And if there is turbidity in it, some suspended dissolved particles in it, it is again not usable. Temperature, if it is of high temperature or extremely low temperature, again usability becomes a question mark. Conductivity, that is the presence of different ions contributing to the conductivity. So if it matches the standard set standards, only then the water is usable. The chemical parameters of the water quality assessment are pH, acidity, alkalinity, hardness, and solids. So, I mean, solids in the sense total dissolved solid, total suspended solids. It also contributes to the quality of water. Now, let's look into some, okay, biological aspect, the presence of bacteria, minimum number of bacteria, maximum number which is tolerable, presence of pathogenic bacteria, all those presence of organisms can contribute to the water quality assessment. Now, some of the common problems and their reasons. Water turns black and smell. It is a wastewater. It has acidic taste, low pH. Alkaline taste, it has high pH. Boiled rice, hard and yellow, it has high alkalinity. White deposits on boiling, it indicates the present, hardness of the water because of the certain kinds of salts which contributes to the hardness. Iron taste, and water changes color after exposure to environment. This is because of the presence of iron. Soap is not lathering, hardness because of the hardness. So all these factors would contribute to the quality of the water. So in this video, you have learned about water natural resources, in which you have looked into what are renewable resources and non-renewable resources and their types and uses. You have looked into the significance of forest as a resource and the effect of deforestation and how do we conserve the forest. And third and last point, we looked at water as a resource, the demand of the water, management of the water, and also we looked at the certain parameters which would govern the usability of the water. And water quality parameters such as physical, chemical, and biological parameters, what are the different contributing factors to the quality of the water. These are the aspects we looked at in this particular video. Thank you, guys.